Thank you for joining on time, everyone. While we wait for more participants, there is a survey on the chat, and do take time to fill that in. And we will be starting in a couple of minutes. Good morning to everyone who has gathered here on this virtual platform on a lovely Sunday morning. And let me warmly welcome all of you to Her Online Presence, a webinar organized by the Golden Z Club of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, in collaboration with the Digital Wellbeing Initiative that seeks to educate women especially on the threats that we face online on a day-to-day basis. Now, all of us know that with the COVID-19 outbreak that happened and the resultant lockdown and stay-at-home measures, there has been a surge in online activity, especially by young people. And this has heightened our susceptibility to online threats such as cyberbullying, online sexual abuse, bullying, exploitation, and so many other risks. And if you look at Sri Lanka in particular, and the statistics, around 15,000 cases of online abuses were reported last year. And this is to say that the rate of cyberbullying has drastically increased in that short time span. And which is why we believe that this is a relevant issue now more than ever. So personally speaking, have you personally ever been a victim of cyberbullying or hate speech? Or have you ever received inappropriate comments or unsolicited images on social media? I'm sure this is a common experience for most of us. Or at the very least, we were probably stuck in a situation where we did not know where to go for help for these kind of issues. So today's the day that you will find the answers. So without further ado, let me introduce you to three amazing speakers from Digital Wellbeing who are here with us today. So first, we have Pumi Vijayasundara. She is a theatre director, actor, and playwright. She obtained her master's in theatre directing at the University of Essex, UK. Pumi works with youth and has directed award-winning youth plays in Sri Lanka. She is the co-artistic director at Stages Theatre Group and has acted in and produced theatre productions at international theatre festivals in UK and Rwanda. She is also currently a visiting lecturer of applied theatre in the Faculty of Arts, University of Colombo. Malin Jayasurya. Malin holds a PhD in robotics from the University of Technology, Sydney, with a research focus on robot perception, localization, and AI. He is currently an academic at Curtin University Colombo campus and the University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka. He is passionate about teaching, science communication, and advocating for information, literacy, and digital well-being. Malin is also known to dabble in theatre, filmmaking, VFX, music, and game design in his free time. And then we have Shakya Nathavitarana. Shakya has completed her degree in psychology offered by the University of West London. She is also pursuing an ATCL in communication skills. Shakya also won the Global Unites International Oratory Contest in 2021 and is now a part-time teacher and aspiring entrepreneur and a podcast host. I can personally attest to the fact that all three of them are extremely talented at whatever they do, and we are truly grateful to have them here with us today for this webinar. They're also three very nice people, and so do feel free to interact and ask any questions if you have. So without further ado, let me hand over the controls of today's proceedings to these dynamic individuals so that they can share with us their knowledge and experience. So over to you, Digital Wellbeing.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thanks a lot for inviting us. We are really happy to be here. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. All right. So before we start, I know it's a Sunday morning. Everyone's probably just woken up and slightly sleepy, but it will really help us out if some of you can switch on your cameras as well, so we can actually talk to human beings instead of a blank screen, right? Obviously, we are not going to force you. Some of you might have just woken out of bed, and that's totally fine. Also, we won't judge. This is a workshop on cyberbullying, so no one's going to bully you. So it will really help us if you guys also put on your cameras, and then we can actually sort of connect with you guys through the screen. If anyone is willing to help us out, we really appreciate it. Also, we'll make this as interactive as possible. I know you guys are kind of stuck here for the next hour and a half listening to us, right? And I know a lot of people have been on Zoom a lot these days with COVID and everything, and sometimes it really sucks. And you zone out. Like, it happens to us as well, right? Sometimes when you're watching a lecture or something, we're on the other side, watching YouTube, right? So to avoid it being boring and avoid it being, like you guys being stuck on the other side and us being stuck on this side, just let's make this as interactive as possible. Let's talk to each other. Let's connect, right? So we'd really appreciate it. Thank you, Nuha, for switching on your camera. So anyone else who'd like to switch on your cameras and be as interactive as possible, we'd really appreciate it. All right. So having said that, let's start off with a quick introduction. So as Ashwini very nicely introduced us, we are called the Digital Wellbeing Initiative, right? So before I actually introduce ourselves, there's also a survey on the chat. So while I'm doing the introductions, you all can fill it up. It'll take you maybe 1 or 2 minutes just to get an idea of your general understanding of cyberbullying. So yeah, about Digital Wellbeing Initiative, we started somewhere around last year, and it was honestly just a group of friends who were worried about the things that we were seeing online, and we got together and we formed a small organization to try to push these issues mainly to the younger generation, and eventually we hope to try to get these across to the school curriculums. So it's really nice that we get to talk to all of you who would most of you are potentially going to be doctors and really important, holding really important and responsible positions in our society. So it's really we're really thankful to have this opportunity to talk about very important issue, right? So we mainly focus on issues related to technology and how it affects our lives, right? And how it affects our mental well-being, especially in developing countries, right? Because when you go even in like a village in Sri Lanka, or even go to like a city area, everyone at this point has smartphones, right? And that's great. We have all this information at our fingertips. We get to connect with everyone online. But at the same time, there are bad things about it as well that no one is really trying to tackle, right? And at this point, I want everyone to know that we don't think technology is all bad, right? Technology is a tool. I'm an engineer. I build technology, right? So I believe in the power of technology, but technology is just like any other tool, right? You can use it for good things and bad things. You take a knife, you can stab someone, or you can make a nice salad and have a great lunch, right? So tools have good things and bad things, and usually we try to control the bad things and try to take the best of the good things, and that's what we want to try to inculcate in the next generation, right? So basically, usually you have these systems that try to reduce the bad stuff, right? You have laws, you have the government trying to regulate the bad stuff. You have teachers and educators talking about the bad stuff. When it comes to any issue in society, right? We have our families and parents talking about the bad stuff. But when it comes to technology, somehow these systems are failing us. Why? Because technology is moving so fast, right? Technology is moving so fast. Our parents are outdated. Our teachers are outdated, right? Our government is obviously outdated, right? So like we are having real trouble controlling the bad things, which is why people like you and the younger generation is going to be key in trying to control the bad things and take the best of the good things, right? So we are really glad to have you here, and we are really grateful for the Z Club of the Colombo Medical Faculty for inviting us to talk about this very serious issue, which is about cyberbullying. So about cyberbullying, now we handed you guys a quick survey. So let's really quickly go through that and start off the workshop. Also, we only have 2 people who switched on their cameras. If there's anyone else, we'd really appreciate you guys if you can just have your cameras on so we can actually have a conversation. All right, so let me quickly, Ashwini, can I have permission to share my screen? So let's look at the responses that all of you made for the survey before we start the workshop. Okay, thank you, Ashwini. So let me share my screen. All right, can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. All right, so these are the questions. The first question was, how knowledgeable are you about cyberbullying laws and reporting mechanisms? So most of you have said that they have some idea. Quite a few of you have said they have no idea at all, right? And only a very minute portion of you all have said that you are very knowledgeable about the laws and reporting mechanisms, right? So hopefully this workshop will take all the red and orange people to the blue side, right? That's what we hope to do in this workshop. Okay, have you ever been bullied online? So a large majority of you have vehemently said no, right? Some of you are not sure, which is interesting, right? Because what we realize is cyberbullying is so subtle sometimes, it's really hard for us to identify what cyberbullying is. So this is another area that we'll focus on today about what exactly is cyberbullying, right? And how to identify it, right? Do you feel like you have been a cyberbully? So again, there's a small portion of like a average portion of you who are not sure about this, which is really interesting to see. Again, a large majority of you are pretty sure that you haven't been, which is great. I'm glad that we are in the presence of mostly non-bullies, but 11% of you are pretty sure that you also bullied online, which is understandable, right? As we'll talk today, sometimes it's really sometimes even without knowing, we tend to bully other people online, even our friends. So being aware of this issue is really helpful, especially because we spend so much time online, right? We spend a majority of our time online. So for example, having this many people not sure how to report and talk about cyberbullying is an issue that we need to talk about, right? Okay, then we have these 2 questions about what are the subtle ways in which cyberbullying happens, right? So here are pretty interesting answers about people breaking people's privacy and sharing information, how it comes through WhatsApp groups, rude comments, right? Negative comments, media campaigns. That's a really interesting thing because we have all these gossip websites that sometimes, harass people, hacking accounts. So there's a lot of interesting answers here. We will try to publish this survey to you guys once, maybe through the Z Club, so that everyone gets an idea of the kind of answers we got. Okay, and this is a very interesting question. List a few ways cyberbullying differs from bullying in general. So we have a lot of people talking about anonymity, right? Quite a lot of people who talk about basically how there is no limit to the time and place cyberbullying can happen, right? Like regular bullying is at least at school or whatever, right? But cyberbullying can follow you anywhere, right? And how much mental harm it causes, right? And how it's away from a victim's control. So a lot of interesting questions. Thank you. If you haven't completed this, complete it so that we all get an idea of generally what like a general university student knows about cyberbullying. So hopefully a lot of these statistics will change by today's workshop. Now the workshop will mainly be conducted by Pumi and Shakya, right? Who in Pumi's case, she works a lot with children, so understands a lot about cyberbullying. And Shakya has studied psychology, so she also understands these issues a bit more deeper. So I will hand it over to them and to continue the workshop. Thank you for listening. Again, one more request to keep your cameras on and be as interactive as possible. I'll hand it over to Pumi now.
Thanks, Malin. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right. So, hi everybody. Again, thanks for joining us on a Sunday morning to learn about what cyberbullying is. Okay, so just to get us started, now that we've seen what you guys seem to know, not know, what you're not sure you know about cyberbullying, I thought we'd jumpstart into trying to understand cyberbullying with a few stories, right? So I'm going to tell you 3 stories with 3 outcomes. And now I can see with your names that we have both guys and girls in the audience. We have young women and men in the audience, which is superb. But since our focus today is especially on the kinds of harassment that young women face online, I'm going to tell you the story of 3 young women. some of these stories you may have already heard, maybe not, but we are going to look at what happened to 3 young women. So first story is the story of Aditya. She's a 16-year-old schoolgirl. Next, we have Fatima. She's a 21-year-old undergraduate like yourselves. And then we have the story of Venusha, who is again 15 years old. She's in 10th grade. And in school, right? So now Aditya was a 16-year-old vivacious young girl who was going to school. She was a great singer, right? And then she thought that she would enter something that we all seen and heard of, I'm sure, Voice Teens Sri Lanka, right? This, it's a global platform. So she thought she'd enter Voice Teens to sing because she was talented at it. And then we have young Fatima, who was an undergraduate, who, in her everyday, like university life, this is before COVID when, things like gatherings were a thing. She went for a university batch party. It was something like a sarong party, how you have things like, we used to have at least things like baila nights, gatherings in university, I'm sure even the Zonta Club used to have things like that, right? So she went to a university batch party. And then we have Venusha, 15-year-old girl from school who went on a school trip, right? So very everyday things. And now 3 things happened to these young girls. Now Aditya, when she was in Voice Teens, of course, you see how a lot of these teenagers get a lot of attention, right? Especially when they move from one round to the other, they become quite popular. Suddenly they become icons, and you see their photos, videos, all their music being shared. So just like any other competitor on Voice Teens, on these reality TV shows, a lot of her images, a lot of her photos, a lot of her songs, and especially because she was a very vocal young woman, right? And that's that's something that you don't see every day, at least in the Sri Lankan kind of platform. She was a very vocal young woman. She had a huge, big personality for someone her age, and a lot of her videos went viral. So we could see her constantly. You could see her online. And with Fatima, you know how when there's an event, there's always an official photographer, right? Extreme Youth or whatever. And then suddenly after a week or two, you see your photos in an album on social media, right? So like this, the photographs of the event of the Sarong night, the university batch party, were online. With Venusha, what happened was when she was on the trip, she was with a guy friend. She was in a mixed school. So they were all, going on the trip, the boys and the girls together. And she happened to be at the back of a bus with a friend who was a guy. Could be her boyfriend, could not be. We don't know. But it was just a friend of hers, a classmate who was a guy she was with at the back of her bus. And someone happened to take a picture of her and happened to post it online without her consent, right? So we have 3 incidents of 3 young women and how their images, their personas kind of ended up online. Now we are going to look at how after this things blew over, right, and snowballed into something none of these young women expected. So first off, we are going to look at what happened to Aditya, right? Now, with Aditya, as I said, she was a young girl with a big personality, and we've all seen how absolutely nasty. I mean, it's quite easy. It only takes us like a few minutes to go on one of those YouTube videos and to check on the comments to see how absolutely nasty and wild the internet can get, and also how unforgiving the internet can be even to a young woman, because suddenly we forget that it's an actual person behind the screen, right? We only see an icon with a personality, right? So with Aditya, suddenly the internet was booming with a very highly sexualized memes, rumors, and it even went to the extent of gossip sites creating rumors of this nature with videos, just manipulated videos. Now remember, this is just a 16-year-old child, right? We see them as a global icon or a pop star, but at the end of the day, this was a child, and what happened to her was eventually she got into such an anxious and depressive state where she spoke to media about how how at one point she couldn't even sing, right? Because it was affecting her so much. And now with a mob like this coming at you with memes and rumors, and with it being at such a vast scale, there wasn't like it was quite difficult to take action. However, there was a community that did back her up, and so a lot of these got reported. The media started talking about it, right? Even her coaches and her mentors in the Voice Teens platform also started talking about it. And at the end of the day, Aditya herself, while she combated a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, she eventually came out of it attempting to be vocal about the kind of cyberbullying people like young women like her faced on this platform, right? So even today you see that she's a singer, that she continues her career. However, this is something that had a huge impact on her. And as you can see, she constantly says, I'm still 16 years old, and how did people forget that, right? Now this is what happened to Fatima. Sorry, Aditya. Now let's look at Fatima. Now this is the young undergraduate who, like yourselves, just went to a batch party, and you know how you have these games you play in these batch parties, right? Right, like you keep a balloon in the middle of your head and two people balance it, right? So she was playing one of these games. She happened to be wearing her headscarf and was playing it with a young man in like one of her peers in university. So the photographers put this photo online, and somehow, just because of the way it looked, a lot of religious fanatics kind of began bombarding her inbox, began bombarding her comment section, and suddenly there was a mass community. Now, these are a few of the kinds of threats she received online on the comment section, just because she was a young Muslim woman. A lot of these are religious extremists, by the way, right? And we all know how sometimes the internet can turn into a mob mentality. We've even seen how the internet can turn to a community. For instance, I'm sure all of you saw, even after the Easter attacks in 2019, right, we had a lot of extremist Sinhala Buddhist fanatics who turned against the entire Muslim community. In the same manner, this was just a religious extremist fanatic group that began to even send her death threats on her inbox, simply for this image appearing online. And so with this, now Fatima attempted to take action, but with a thing like this, it's very difficult, right? Because it's not one person, it's like a group of people. They're not even interconnected to each other. These are just random people posting comments on their inbox. And so when she found that it was difficult for her to take action, what she did was, she deactivated all her profiles and just took a complete digital detox. What we call a digital detox is when you just completely go off the grid and go offline. Now that is the action that she had to take. And then we have Venusha, which out of all these stories is the most tragic story. This is the young 15-year-old who was on her trip, and a friend happened to post her a picture of herself and her young male peer being in the back of a bus. Now, this photograph made its rounds on Facebook. It reached her friends, it reached eventually her teachers, and finally it reached her principal. Now, we all know, if a lot of you are from state schools, right? Also, like mixed schools or most often girls schools, we see how this kind of issue, like an image on Facebook, especially an image with a guy friend on Facebook, can just blow out of proportions, right? And what happened with her school is, one thing, there were a lot of rumors circulating among her peers. This photo was circulating. Then the principal confronted her. And this child, just a 15-year-old child, could not bear the pressure of it. And at the end of the day, at the end of the day, she wrote a letter to her father apologizing for what had happened and how she had tarnished the name of her family. And she committed suicide at the end of the day. This young 15-year-old committed suicide simply over a photo that circulated that she didn't even consent for it to be online, right? Now, these three stories are all true. All these three stories really happened. Venusha in 2014, Fatima in 2018, and the Voice Teens phenomena was a very recent 2019-2020 kind of fiasco. And we see this ongoing as well. Now, this is for you to understand the gravity and the different natures in which cyberbullying can happen in our community and the absolute wildness of it, right? Now, Ashwini also mentioned in the beginning of our session of some statistics, right? This is, she told us the number of reported cases of cyberbullying and cyber harassment in Sri Lanka in 2021 was 15,000 cases, right? Now, this is post-COVID when everything moved online. And I have a quick question to you guys. To you guys, does this statistic, 15,000 cases of cyberbullying for a year in Sri Lanka, does this sound like a high number or does it sound low? Any comments? Anybody? You guys
Seems
can.
low, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, thanks, Noha. Exactly. Like with the now, we've all heard of somebody being cyberbullied. We all know, I'm sure, at least 5 people who've been cyberbullied and on some level. So this number actually sounds a little low, knowing the kind of culture, cyber harassment culture we have in our country, right? Now, what does this tell us? Now, for instance, you guys, even in your surveys, had sometimes said you're not sure if you were cyberbullying, cyberbullied. Some of you had also said you were not very sure about how reporting happens. Now, this is the case in the vast majority of these cases. A lot of these cases don't get reported, either because it's a very blurry situation and you're not even sure if this is cyberbullying, or simply because you really don't know what to do about it, right? So this seems a rather low number. This is because this is just the number of reported cases, right? Which is why it's important for us to begin understanding what cyberbullying is. How do we report it? How do we even begin to think about it, right? Which is all the things we're going to talk about today, right? So first of all, to start us off, Shakya is going to tell you a little bit more about what cyberbullying is. How do you begin to identify cyberbullying? What are the different forms of cyberbullying, right? And afterwards, I'm going to come back in to tell you the kind of things you can do to prevent or combat it. So this can be legal action, or like how do you go to organizations for help. And finally, Shaka is going to talk to you about what you can do on a more personal level to build resilience to face issues like this, right? So with that, I'm going to hand over to Shakya to take you through what cyberbullying really is.
Thank you very much, Puni. And let me very quickly share my screen with all of you. Right. Is my screen visible to everybody or not yet?
The screen is visible, but I think you're sort of breaking up a little, lagging a little bit. So maybe if you switch off your camera, it might be a bit better. The audio. Yeah.
Okay. How is it now? Better?
Much better, much better.
All right, lovely. So I'll keep my camera switched off for a little while and I'll be sure to switch it back on. Right. So now we've looked a little bit and in detail as well as to what the issue of cyberbullying in our current context, especially in Sri Lanka, is, and the type of challenges that we as women do face. Now, the question I have to all of you is, what is cyberbullying and how would you define it? You can put in your answers in the chat or unmute your mics and say what you think cyberbullying is. Just take a wild guess. It doesn't matter if it's not a proper definition, but in your opinion, how would you define cyberbullying?
Maybe it's like harassing people online or making people feel uncomfortable online. Great.
Yes, thank you. That is quite accurate, actually. So if we were moving on to the definition of cyberbullying itself, it is very simply, as you mentioned, to bully with the use of technology. And it is done with the intention of trying to hurt somebody or to make them feel uncomfortable. Now, the question then is, isn't that what bullying is also? Isn't the intention of bullying at the end of the day to hurt somebody and to make them feel uncomfortable? It is. But the only difference between cyberbullying and traditional bullying is not the fact that cyberbullying happens online. When we talk about the traditional sense of bullying, we can think of verbal bullying as well as physical bullying in itself. And when you think of cyberbullying, there are three components that will make it different from the traditional sense of bullying. One is the fact that there is a lack of social cues. Let's take Zoom, for example. to even today, or even when you go for a Zoom class, sometimes we don't have our camera switched on. We don't unmute our mics and speak much either. And as a result, we're not really sure what the other person behind the screen is feeling. We don't know if they're paying attention, if they're interested, if they're feeling all right or not. So the lack of social cues that we have, especially when we are interacting online, does affect whether we are cyberbullies ourselves or we are the victim. And similarly, another factor is the factor of anonymity. When you're online and you're trying to, if you're bullying somebody, all you really need is the internet, and you turn out to be pretty anonymous as well. You can log in with a username and no one really knows who you are. And unfortunately, the other sad part is the fact that cyberbullying can follow you even to your safest of places. When you're in school or even university, you may get verbally bullied, or physically even for that matter, but that is only at that time period when you're in school. But then when you come home, it's done. Cyberbullying is not so. You can be at your home, the place that you think you would feel safest at, and still feel terribly uncomfortable and worried, and feel like nothing really is going your way. So that is how cyberbullying is different compared to the general sense of bullying. Now, what effect does this have on us as women and as individuals who are being cyberbullied? Now, a study done identified that cyberbullying victims are actually more likely to be depressed than victims of the traditional sense of bullying. And this is only, I think, natural, especially considering our day and age, where everything is digitalized and our lives, for that matter, are also online. And the effects of cyberbullying are not just limited to feeling upset and distraught. It can range into even having it affect you physically as well. Mentally, you can go through depression and anxiety. Emotionally, it can affect you where you feel upset and sad. And physically, it can affect you in terms of lack of sleep, having terrible headaches, and overall feeling physically drained as well. So when you've identified these effects of cyberbullying, that it is upsetting you, that it's making you feel uncomfortable, the question then is, how do you really know if you are being cyberbullied? You know you are being cyberbullied when you go through these effects. Let me share with you an example of how I was in a position that I thought was rather uncomfortable. And it happened on a platform that you wouldn't think it would usually happen on, which is LinkedIn. It's a very professional platform where you share about your work, when compared to Instagram and Facebook, where it's a little bit more personal. LinkedIn is purely for work, so to say. Now, I had an instance where a gentleman much older than me was having a conversation with me, and even though he was having a conversation, something seemed a little off. Initially, I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe he is just being nice, go with the flow. But then as the conversation progressed, it turned out to be even more uncomfortable, and he turned out to be foot fetish. So when you are in that position and you know it is making you feel uncomfortable and something is just completely off, tap into it. That is a sign that A, you're in a position you don't want to be in. And secondly, maybe it is a sign that you are also being cyberbullied yourself. So keep in mind that if you ever want to identify and you're not sure if you are being cyberbullied, one thing to take into account is the effects that you could sort of experience, but also keep in mind that in the pit of your stomach, if there's this really uncomfortable feeling, pay heed to it. You just might be going through cyberbullying and being in a position that you don't really want to be in. Now, when we talk about cyberbullying in particular, it is an umbrella term. Cyberbullying is not simply posting nasty comments on Instagram or Facebook. It's actually quite vast in that sense. If you take a look at the slide, you can see there's catfishing, exclusion, grooming, trolling, blackmail, trickery. It is very, very vast. So let me highlight a few of the forms of cyberbullying, which are very relevant, I think, to us as women as well, and which are also very prevalent in today's day and age and today's society. So catfishing. Now, this is something that I think is pretty common. Catfishing is when somebody is trying to lure you into a relationship by means of a fictional online persona. So it's not your real persona. You're not portraying who you really are. You are having something that is purely made up and fake. And a classic example of this is the romantic comedy with Nina Dobrev. They did a movie very recently about a young boy who pretended to be someone he was not in order to lure this girl into a relationship. Now, this is a romantic comedy, and it makes the whole idea of catfishing seem rather funny, but it is not so in reality. In reality, it is a very uncomfortable, distasteful position to be in. So keep in mind that these things can happen, and the fact that you can be anonymous on the internet means sometimes you really don't know who you're interacting with. Now, another form of cyberbullying, which is pretty common, is blackmailing. And this is threatening to share information about an individual to the public without their consent. And it's a form of threatening as well. And we've heard so many stories about people trying to share nude images of other people or threatening to share information that is very personal and private to them and threaten them. Now, if this is happening, this is definitely your red flag to get help, and how you can get help and the measures that you can take is something that we will look into in great length and detail as we progress. There's also a type of cyberbullying called frapping, which is when someone uses your social media account without permission and uses it to spread offensive comments and pictures by pretending to be you. I had a friend who went through this situation when we were in school a few years back, and she had someone who was pretending to be her online and messing with her account and posting a lot of nasty things. And it was a very uncomfortable position for her to be in. It also made her feel very upset and angry about what was happening around her. And these are all natural feelings to have when you're going through something like cyberbullying. How you can address it, again, we will look into. Now, having looked a little bit into the types of forms of cyberbullying and what cyberbullying is, you all can use the raise your hand option so that we can see how many of you think you may have been cyberbullied.
Shaka, could you repeat that again? You were breaking up a bit, I think. Yeah.
Of course. How many of you think you have been cyberbullied? Okay. Right. Okay, so there we go. I think in some form or fashion, we all know that in at least it's some way we've been cyberbullied. You are cyberbullying yourself. How many of you think you are cyberbullied?
In other words, it doesn't even have to be those serious types of cyberbullying. If you made someone uncomfortable or you felt uncomfortable online because of something someone has posted, right? And do you think you made someone uncomfortable on a WhatsApp group, on Facebook, on a comment section?
Ooh, okay. I see a number of people raising their hands now. Right. So one thing to keep in mind is that sometimes the reason we end up bullying people, I think sometimes it's not
I think Shakya's connection is a little unstable. She's in Kandy at the moment. Shakya?
We may end up saying something that makes another person feel uncomfortable simply because the social cues have been removed. So you can't see another person, so you don't really think about it, and you go ahead and post something. Did I get
Shakya,
stuck?
sorry.
Yeah, Shaka, you were
Yes.
breaking up quite a bit. I'll just recap what Shaka was meant to say for this section. So basically, what she was talking about is how in regular bullying, when we see someone being hurt,
Oh, yeah.
we stop our
Yes.
bullying because we can see them feeling sad, right? Like even if you're most of us here like to think we are good people, right? So if you go and say something to someone's face, right, and we see them hurting and feeling sad, we'd obviously stop, right? Unless you are a really bad person, right? I don't think anyone here is like a really bad person, right? But the difference online is even if you're a good person, you can't see how much you're hurting that person. You don't see those social cues, right? So as a result of that, online bullying, even it's easy even for good people to easily become bullies, right? So I think Shakya got disconnected. Shakya, are you still here?
I'm back.
Okay, great. Okay, you can share your screen and continue. I just recap
Okay.
that section that you kind of broke up on.
Right. Thank you so much.
Shakya, when you're sharing, there's an option called
Okay.
optimize my
Is
video.
my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry guys for the like
Okay.
I'm sure all of us are used to
Okay.
this
Give
by
me
now
a
on Zoom. This
Yeah,
happens.
I
Yeah.
am very sorry.
No problem,
I've
Shakya.
got like 2 internets running, but
Uh,
what is
okay.
that?
Actually, shall we do this? Shall I or Piyumi, do you have these slides? Actually, Shakya, it's all kind of not that clear with the
Oh,
optimized option. So maybe go without the optimized option.
got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, guys.
Okay. Better now?
Connect. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right. So sent us and maybe even unintentionally lead us to saying something that probably does hurt another person. So how do you not be a cyberbully? There are 3 very simple rules that I think would help anybody not cyberbully, but also be a little bit more empathetic and caring towards somebody else's feelings. One is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Before you say something, especially online, it's good to think about whether if somebody told you something, if you would feel to understand if you would feel okay with it or do that. So before you make a particular action and be a little
Shakya?
bit empathetic towards
Shak-
what another person would feel.
Yep.
Yes.
Shakya, I'll just recap this very quickly because it's getting a little jabbled. Your next presentation, you can send it to me and I'll share my screen. So just leave it here. This is your last slide, right? So I'll just
Yes.
okay, I'll just quickly recap. Sorry, guys. This happens online. So basically, what Shakya was talking about is like how, since we are talking about how we could end up being cyberbullies, what can we do about it? So the first thing is the golden rule. Like every religion has this golden rule, right? Think about how you want to be treated, right? And treat others the way you want to be treated, right? So that's the first thing you have to think about before you comment on someone's picture or say something on WhatsApp. Just think about how you would like to be treated. That's the first thing. Second thing you should ask yourself, would I say this thing if I met this person face to face? Right? Would I actually, like, if this person was right in front of me, would I say the thing I'm going to say? Would I leave this comment, like the comment you're about to leave, right? Putting a bit of shade on someone or being mean to someone, would you say that face to face? Right? That's the second thing that you should keep in mind. Third thing is always rethink twice or thrice before you say something, right? Ask yourself, are you going to hurt this person? Is this a nice thing to say? Am I being a nice person by saying this? Am I being a kind, empathetic person? And it's really funny because, these days, we all watch all these superhero movies where everyone's a hero and like everyone's saving everybody, right? But every day we have that opportunity to be a kind hero, right, to the person next to us, and still we choose not to, right? Especially when we are online. So think twice if you want to emulate these like heroes and characters and all these great characters that we look up to. You can start today itself. Okay, so just to quickly recap Shakya's presentation, basically she talked about the different forms of cyberbullying, how subtle it can be, how serious it can be, right? And talked about how basically if you're feeling uncomfortable, that's a good sign that you are being cyberbullied. And similarly, it's very easy for us to also cause cyberbullying because sometimes the social cues that we see, right, are not there on the internet. And so it's really important that we be as kind and empathetic as possible to other people around us, right? Because it's very easy to really slip, even for nice people, to slip and become cyberbullies. So think twice before you go through, post anything. So now I'll hand it over to Pumi to continue the next section. And sorry about the technical issues. I'll speak to Shakya about the next section.
All right, guys. So now that you have an idea with Shakya's presentation about what cyberbullying is, the different kinds of cyberbullying. Now, some of you, for instance, who initially answered that you have not been cyberbullied ever in your life, may be rethinking, okay, hang on a second, maybe I was cyberbullied at some instance, right? So just to like rethink and maybe think in future about instances where you are being cyberbullied, right? Now that we know what it looks like and what it may feel like to be cyberbullied, we are now going to look at, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the courses of action you can take in two forms. So one is what is the legal actions you can take, and then there's also organizations that can help you, right? So now, quick question to all of you. Now, do any of you guys know any existing laws on cyberbullying in Sri Lanka, or do you think there's like any? What do you think our legal system might look like for cyberbullying? Any idea? Do you think we have any good laws? Do you think?
Raise your hands,
Do you know
guys.
any of the laws we have? Raise your hand, or you can just.
Yeah. So quick poll: how many of you all think there are laws? Raise your hands.
All right, I can see a couple of hands. Any of you know any laws that exist? Okay, so right. So a few of you seem to think we have some laws, and they may know a few laws that exist in when you look at cyberbullying. So let me tell you the laws that we have existing in our current judicial system to address cyberbullying. Surprise! We actually don't have any laws, specific laws governing that area, right? Which, I mean, if you really think about it, isn't too surprising considering our very modern and updated legal and judicial system that we have in our country, sadly. So we don't have any laws directly governing cyberbullying. However, what we do have is we have a penal code that was drafted in 1883, right? Which is supposedly applicable to cyberbullying, right? Now that's the penal code rising from the dead to address issues that are to do with cyberbullying in the current day and age, right? So this penal code has a few provisions that can be used when it comes to addressing issues of cyberbullying, cyber exploitation, and harassment. Now, some of these provisions are so there's three penal code offenses. One, section 345 to do with sexual harassment, section 483 to do with criminal intimidation, section 399 to do with cheating by personation. These are the sections that can be applied in the current day and age to address issues of cyberbullying and exploitation. Now let's have a quick look at what this means, right? So now, section 345 deals with things like sexual harassment. Now, what this includes is things like sexual jokes, comments on your physical attributes, body shaming, sexualizing someone, spreading rumors like the one we saw, for instance, of Aditya, right? Like the kinds of sexual rumors that were spread, repeatedly asking you out on dates. Now, in 1883, this might have looked like somebody just kind of screaming out an insult in the street. But because it's so broadly worded, it can be applied in instances like this, right? And there are punishments, so you can be fined or you can be imprisoned for a certain number of years for these kinds of offenses. Then you have criminal intimidation, right? What criminal intimidation includes is things like blackmail. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard of the word revenge porn. Have you guys heard of revenge porn? Yes? No? I can see a few nods. So, and maybe you have even heard, like, there was a couple of years ago. Yeah, all of you seem to have heard about revenge porn. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a huge fiasco. It was called the Dropbox link, where ex-boyfriends or like ex-partners who had had tiffs with their partners started collecting on a general platform on Dropbox nudes or intimate pictures that their partners had shared with them, trusting them, and this link was going around and going in circles, and eventually the cybercrimes unit kind of clamped down on it, but it took so long and the pictures had been widely circulated. Now, things like this are criminal offenses under this criminal intimidation section, where if someone's blackmailing you, threatening you, or even threatening or pressuring you to do sexual acts or anything you wouldn't do if not pressured to do it, or if they are threatening to hurt your family members, right? Now, all of this comes under this umbrella. Then we have cheating by personation. Now, this includes things like catfishing, frapping, things that Shakya talked about earlier. Like, for instance, let's say you have this guy or someone in university, guy or girl, that you really like in university, and somebody else creates a fake profile in their name, and then you've been chatting to them for weeks and weeks or months, and then you're lured into coming to meet them, and you see that it's not them, it's somebody else, right? So even this is a criminal offense, because if you would not have put yourself in that position, you would not have gone had you known this was someone else, right? So this is setting up a fake account, deceiving somebody in the name of someone else, pretending to even be you, right? So, and inducing people to do something else. Now, these are all things that come under this section. Now, while these laws exist, right? While these laws exist, something to keep in mind about the legal section is, it takes so long. Now, we all know, like, our legal system takes so long to bring perpetrators to justice. Now, I don't know if you remember this, but recently we even had a case of this rape victim who was about 10 years old when she was raped, and eventually when she was brought to justice, she had grown up, she had become a lawyer herself, and she was following up on cases like that. She was 20-something years old, right? So we all know that pursuing a criminal law charge in Sri Lanka can take a long time. It can be really emotionally, taxing on you, especially if you have to repeat, if you have to go back to this emotional experience that you went through, right? So it can take a very long time. In very realistic terms, this is the case in Sri Lanka. However, although it takes so long, something that's important to remember is reporting this case, right? If you report somebody, or like especially a serious incident, if you have a cyber stalker, or you have someone who's constantly harassing you online and really impinging on your personal and private space, or threatening to put your pictures online, or even nowadays you don't even have to actually share your images. Like, people can digitally manipulate your images, right? People can digitally manipulate your images and say, oh, look, this is you, I'm going to share your picture. And in fact, this is something that happened very recently. On WhatsApp, there was a random number. Now, this case, actually, the cybercrimes unit took this story up, right? So there was a WhatsApp, like a random anonymous number would send some, like, I had a friend that this happened to, sent a message saying, look, I have your pictures, you need to deposit this amount in my bank account, or I'm going to leak this. And this friend of mine who was a doctor, she was like, wait, what? I don't even know you. And then this person had sent what seemed like a very obviously digitally manipulated, they've taken a picture of like her head from somewhere like Facebook or even a WhatsApp profile picture, and digitally manipulated, kind of put it on the body of a naked woman. It was, for her, it was quite clear it was a digitally manipulated picture, and she was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then she eventually took it to the cybercrimes unit. However, what they realized when they searched, like when they dug deeper, now not everybody has the courage to be like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, you know, and not everybody has that courage to go to the cops or like, you know, really think about, okay, this is a digitally manipulated image, so, you know, I don't have to really care about this. A lot of women had actually followed up on this, and they had been threatened, they had been blackmailed, they had been in this like really difficult situation. And it happened to be a chain, like it happened to be a very organized crime kind of situation, right? So in situations like this, although we know the legal system takes a long time, it's very important to report, because what happens immediately when you report is you're able to stop this perpetrator from harassing you, right? Because as we all know, people who cyberbully are cowards, because, you know, they are behind a screen, right? They are anonymous, their names are not there, and the moment they feel like their identity could be exposed, they're scared enough to back away. Also, something that could happen is you could prevent this happening to someone else, right? So it's very important that you do take the first step to report, right? You know, even if it takes a long time, even if it eventually does succeed or doesn't succeed, the first step is reporting, because it can stop them. The other thing to remember is, like, you know, we looked at the existing laws, which are well, technically non-existent or not updated enough to combat the kind of issues we have right now. Something that can happen, especially in the worst case scenarios, is our laws are still adaptable, right? They are widely phrased, so they can be, you know, adapted to prosecute the people, convict the people. For instance, something that happened recently, maybe all of you heard about it. This happened in 2021, where there was a 15-year-old child who was groomed online. She was sex trafficked online by her own family, and, you know, she was sexually abused by dozens of men, including local government politicians, Buddhist monks, a Navy medical officer, all of these online, where she was told to perform sexual acts on a live stream camera, right? Now this was a grave like this on so many accounts, this was a very grave case, right? This had a lot of media attention, and then with this media attention, what the country realized, what a lot of people realized, is that our legal system is not equipped to handle a case like this. So because it was such a huge case with all this media attention, suddenly the legal system, a lot of people came together to try and adapt and talk about laws that should happen. For instance, I don't know if you've heard of Verite Research. It's a research institute. They even created this document called the Legal Gap Document, which talks about the gaps in our legal system and the new laws that should that should be amended, that should be created to address these issues of cyber bullying and especially cyber exploitation, right? So these kind of things can be adapted to, especially in the worst case scenarios. Now that you know and you have an idea about like the legal aspect of it, things you can do, here's a bit of a protocol on things to, like a few steps to follow if you think you're being cyberbullied. Now, the first step you can take, obviously, now a lot of you, can I see with a show of hands if you know that on various platforms, the ways you can block and report people? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, great. A lot of you seem to know. Okay, so, okay, that's great. A lot of you seem to be aware that you can block and report. So one thing to know is a lot of these apps, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, and even your call, like your normal telephone, also you can block callers, right? Nuisance callers or whatever. So one of the first steps is you can block or report these harassers on the online platforms, and just a quick Google search will tell you on whatever platform how you can block and report these people. The next thing, especially if you realize that this is a more serious case, you have to tell someone about it. Now, I'd like to ask you guys, this is a very important thing to think about even before something actually happens to you, right? Because sometimes we think, okay, these are things we hear about, this is never going to happen to me, right? And suddenly when something does happen to you, you feel very isolated, you're really shocked, and you don't know what to do about it. So one of the first things to think about is, do you guys have someone who is a trusted adult, a trusted ally, who you can go to in the worst case scenario? Imagine the worst possible thing, right? Let's say something like that is so intimate. Let's say you trusted someone who is your partner and shared like a intimate picture. Now there is a potential that this could go viral. Now, this is the worst case scenario. I'm going to send you, Malin has sent you something on the chat. It's an anonymous, again, a small anonymous questionnaire where you can begin to put it doesn't have to be names. It can be like, your teacher, your friend, or anybody. If you have someone you feel is the first person you might go to. Yeah. So Malin will put on the chat. Okay, so if you go to this link and just share with us, just think about, in the worst case scenario, who do you think you'd approach to ask about something like this or talk to about something like this? Okay, some of you say a friend, mother, parents. I mean, it's great if it's some mentor. Superb. My BFF. Google. Okay. I'm also talking about, yes, Google definitely. Also like a person you can go to. Myself. Now I would say in a tricky situation. Now some of you may not be able to immediately think of someone like that you can go to, right? Which is exactly why I asked you to put this. Like, it's for us to think about, okay, do I have someone I can go to in the worst case scenario and talk about something that is going on like this, who might also be able to, now it can't be anybody, it has to be someone who is also able to give you some sensible advice, right? Now, for instance, let's take Venusha's case. It can't be like a principal figure like that who just blows it out of proportion and makes your already existing problem even worse. Right now, if you don't have someone like that, it's a good time to think about building a relationship, or even think, now it doesn't have to be someone really close. It can even be someone you feel like is sensible enough to help you with something like this. Okay, we have, okay, can everybody try and add? Okay, you have a lawyer friend, that's great. Brother, mom, amma. Can everybody try and add someone? If you don't have someone, maybe you can say don't have someone yet, or teacher. Okay, some of you have your family members, which is great, but not, I don't think everyone has that like that kind of a relationship with their parents as well, in which cases maybe your friend is a good person. If you have a lawyer friend, again, objectively speaking, always a good person to go to for advice. All right. Okay, we can see more things appearing. Ally, parent. All right. So I think that's, yeah. Right. Now, the reason I wanted you guys to do this is, as I said, it's important for us to already think ahead of the worst case scenario and think about who might be a good person to go to help us, take action, right? So already, if you can't think of anyone, also especially because, all these years we've been in the middle of COVID, so even our personal relationships may have crumbled. Maybe like even university, some of you started online, so maybe you don't have as many close friends. So it's a good time to think about building that kind of relationship and thinking about someone you can go to. And the next course of action is to actually go and make a complaint to the police. And ideally, now this is the worst case scenario, so like more serious cases where you feel like you should take action. And also, it's good to, whenever you go to make a complaint for any case, right? In any case, it's always good to go to the police with a witness with you, right? With someone who you can trust and can vouch for you, right? So ideally, it would be your trusted ally or even a lawyer. And the best place too, now we've all heard of horror stories of people, especially women or children, going to the police and their reaction being the worst possible of all reactions. So for the same reason, in the recent years, the police has the women and children's desk at the police station, which deals with more intimate, more sensitive cases like this, where it's mostly women officers as well. And these officers are especially trained to deal with this kind of sensitive information and cases. So you can go to the women and children's desk at most of the police stations have this. The best possible place to go is the Colombo head office, where it's even got counselors. They will direct you to all the right places. Right. Now we know the legal course of action. There's also a lot of organizations that can help you, right? So if you're a little intimidated, if you're a little scared to go directly to the police, which a lot of us are sometimes, right? There's a lot of organizations that can help you as well. Now, here's a few of them. Safe Sisters for Sri Lanka is a great organization run by a few pro bono lawyers, activists, and professionals. So they are especially trained, and they have a lot of experience dealing with a lot of the cases of young women and children. And even again, while I say young women and children, you can reach out for any of these organizations, even young men who are going through this kind of any kind of sexual harassment or cyber exploitation, cyberbullying, can approach them, right? They're very open to helping anybody. Then we have Bakamono. Again, they will, another good way to go to these organizations. Like I said, it's always good to go with things like evidence. So if you are being cyber harassed, if you feel like, someone's talking a little funny to you online and it doesn't feel right, a good thing to do is take screenshots, because then you have the evidence to back it up, right? Even if they delete messages, you have it all backed up. So take screenshots and send it to these organizations. We also have SLCERT, that's Sri Lanka Computer Emergency Readiness Team. At the end of today, we'll also give you a bit of a resource pack that includes all the numbers and details of all these organizations that you can reach out to in any case that something like this happens to you, right? So take screenshots, take evidence, and then show it to them. Get their idea of like what they think you should go do, and they will help you with it. So here's a few other organizations that can help. The Grassrooted Trust, Child Protection Force Sri Lanka, especially if it's to do with like child exploitation, anyone below the age of 18 years. Sisters at Law, they are a group of pro bono lawyers who will help you with your case. Let's say you filed a complaint and you need help, like you don't have the financial backing up to follow up with your case. Now there are a group of pro bono lawyers that will help you. National Child Protection Authority, and of course us. You can also reach out to us and ask us for guidance to help you get through something like this. So this is just so you see what they look like online. We will share these resources with you at the end of today. So that's what you can do in the legal and organizational sense to help support you if you're going through anything like this. Now that you know this, the legal procedure, Shakya is going to tell you what you can do on a more personal level to build your resilience. So over to you, Shakya.
Thank you. Before I proceed, just to check quickly, am I clearly audible?
Sorry. Yes, Shakya, you're audible now, but I'm not sure what will happen when you share your screen. So we'll go ahead, you share your screen. If it gets stuck, I have your slides, so then I can share my screen, and then we can. So we'll try it out for about first few minutes, and let's see how it goes.
Okay, super. It says a host has disabled participant screen share.
Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay, try now, Shakya.
Got it. Super.
Okay.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Is my screen visible? Okay, great. So firstly, apologies for getting logged out. I'm not sure what exactly happened. I have a router, a dongle, and another router, but internet is having a mood swing, so to say. So, right, we've already looked at the legal aspect of what you can do in terms of taking action legally. However, at the end of the day, there is also a battle that we need to fight within ourselves, and there is a problem that we need to deal with emotionally and otherwise as individuals ourselves. So let me take you through what we can do as individuals to overcome cyberbullying and also to face it effectively. Now, there are two situations here. One is where you are the victim, the one who is being bullied, or the second instance where you are the bystander. You're seeing somebody else be bullied. Now, if you were bullied, you can report and take action, as we have discussed in length and detail as to how you can do it legally. The second one that I'll be focusing a lot in detail today is about building resilience. And finally, how you can control the digital technology without allowing it to control you. A quick question out to all of you. How many of you think you are resilient? You can raise your hand if you think you are resilient. Okay. Okay, that's great. We have 4 participants raising their hand. But to the rest of you who are not raising your hand and think you're not resilient, I will actually challenge that and have to disagree with you. Simply because our generation especially has been tried and tested in terms of resilience many, many times. First, it was COVID-19 and we had to stay at home. And then we're also going through an economic crisis, which has changed our lives in ways that we can't even begin to explain. And if you are here today, and especially in the medical faculty itself, in the Colombo University, I think that's a testimony to the fact that you have been resilient. So we are all resilient, I think, in ways that even we may not realize, and a lot stronger than we realize as well. So the skill of resilience, it's a skill. It's something we can all develop. And it is, simply put, the ability to rebound and spring back every time you go through something that is difficult for you or you're facing some form of adversity. So a few ways that we can build resilience is, one is our personal strengths. Secondly, support structures, which we looked at. And finally, and most importantly, it is building psychological immunity. When we talk about personal strengths, think of your past experiences. Maybe you had an experience online that was not going too great and made you feel alone and upset. But at the same time, look no further to COVID-19 and the position we are in already. The fact that these past experiences, the fact that we have overcome them, shows us that we have strength. So if ever you're in a rough patch and you're going through cyberbullying and it's becoming increasingly difficult, remind yourself of the struggles that you have overcome and help the experience make you stronger. So don't look to the past and feel upset. Instead, look at it and draw strength from it. But also understand that asking for help is also a sign of strength. I'm a psychology student, and one of the first things we learned in psychology is that it is not difficult sometimes to get your client to go ahead with the therapy that you are telling them to go ahead with. What is difficult sometimes is to get them to admit the fact that they need help and get them to ask for help. And I think the reason we sometimes don't ask for help is because we feel vulnerable, and we also feel that we are weak if we showcase our the troubles that we are going through. But going through a rough patch is only human. We all go through rough patches. Maybe we've had a relationship that didn't work out well. Maybe we've had exams that we've failed. All of those are rough patches. And even with cyberbullying, when you're in that position, it is not to say, you know what, I am weak because I'm in this position. You are strong because you are facing it. And you need that additional support to face it effectively. So if you're in a position like with cyberbullying, ask for the help, reach out and get the help that you need. And this is when we turn to our support structures. And like we did before, you all thought of many people that you all can turn to as for support. And if you don't have one, that you can think of somebody as well, somebody you deeply trust and somebody who is sensible and who cares enough for you. So turn to family and friends, and as we will be giving you a list at the end as well, think of other organizations. And also, there are always the mental health professionals that you can turn to for counseling and therapy, just so that you can have some peace psychologically, because cyberbullying is something that drains you very psychologically. So it is important that we look after our mental health and psychological immunity. So I'm going to try switching on my video. In case I do get stuck, let me know. I'll switch it back off immediately. Yeah, okay, great. So talking about psychological immunity, when we talk about our physical health, there is a lot that we can do. Did I get stuck?
No, Shakya, things are actually okay this time. Your video is getting a little stuck, but your audio is great. So
Okay, great. So like our physical bodies, we need to, in order to make sure that we are physically healthy, we need to eat well, we need to exercise, and we need to do a lot of things. Psychological immunity is the same. In order to ensure that your psychological immunity is built, there are tons of things that we can do. And the wonderful thing is, these are things that you can even do on your own. But one thing I want to make clear before moving any further is that these tips help for a very mild sense of bullying. Bullying is a scale, cyberbullying especially. It can range from having a few comments people throwing at you about your attire or about how you look to actually being sexually harassed online. Now, if you are at the extreme end of the scale where you are being sexually harassed online, these tips may not be enough for you to really build your psychological immunity. Then you need to turn to help and take legal action and also seek professional help from mental health professionals as well. So these are tips that we can as individuals build for a very small scale of cyberbullying. But when it's at the other extreme, keep in mind, reach out and ask for that help that you need. So a few things that we can do is journaling. I didn't get access to social media until I turned 18. And when I turned 18, I was on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. And for an 18-year-old who had already just got braces and specs, which is, as you can see, the complete nerdy look, it makes you a little insecure to post online because you know you don't exactly fit into the mold of what social media portrays how women and girls in life should be. So I found it very difficult to post online and to be okay with it. And something that I developed at that point was to start journaling. And I kept a constant track of my thoughts and why I was feeling in that particular way. And what this leads to, it helps you to build mindfulness. It helps you be aware of your thoughts and feelings. See, our mind is like an engine. It's constantly working. It's like a machine. So sometimes we lose track of the thoughts we're having ourselves, and it just keeps running. Journaling helps you slow down the thought process that's going, but most importantly, keep track of it and also help you be aware of what you're thinking. When you're aware of what you're thinking, consequently, you are also aware of what you're feeling as well, because we think about what we feel. So this will help you really build your mindfulness. And when it comes to cyberbullying, you will be able to realize why you're feeling that particular way and how you can act upon it. One way to act upon it is to practice the skill of gratitude. So there's going to be a link on the chat. If all of you can post and write something that you are grateful for just today. What are you grateful for today?
Also, the link is on the chat, guys. You can just think of one thing that you're thankful for today. And when you do that, you realize how much of an effect it has on your sense of well-being. Also, since we're slightly running out of time, is it okay if we go about 10 to 15 minutes till about 12:15? Is that all right, Ashwini?
Yeah, that's all
Okay.
right. Good to go.
Hopefully that's all right with everyone else as well. So, Shakya, the results are coming in. Good breakfast.
Nice. Mental health, good. My housemate. How stable my life is. Waking up.
Yeah.
Life in itself, peace of mind.
Yeah, it can be something as simple as your good breakfast, right? Because like every day, there's at least one thing you can be thankful for. And when you realize that, how lucky you are, how grateful you are, and that's a practice that you can actually do every day. Take a moment, take about 5 minutes to think about, like for me today, it was my cup of coffee. Right? I was drinking it and I was really thankful for how much it made me feel awake, the taste of it, all of that, right? Like, so can we have everyone drop in at least one thing? It's a very easy exercise, just like one thing you really genuinely feel thankful for today.
Okay. Right. Okay. Those are an interesting set of answers.
We have a few, we only have 15 responses. Guys, just drop in something. We have 38 people. So Everyone, I'd like to see at least one thing from everyone. The link is on the chat. Otherwise, it just means that all of you are ungrateful. Come on, guys.
And
Let's turn this into an exercise for today. Sorry, Shakya.
no, that's okay. And nothing really is too small to be grateful for. You don't need to think of big things to be grateful for. It can be something really simple, like, I don't know, seeing, oh, I see a short petrol queue. I know that is a very grateful thing when you see a short petrol queue. Also, there has been gas going around recently, which is really, I was able to find gas. So yeah.
Okay. We're getting more answers. All right, guys, thanks. So I will stop sharing my screen. If you all still feel like adding something, please do. This link will be open. So just take that time, think of it as a little exercise that you can do for yourself. Back to Shakya.
Thank you. And right, hold on, let me share my screen one more time. Right, is my screen visible? Okay, great. So the reason we got all of you to do that exercise is because when we're going through a rough patch, when it comes to cyberbullying, it's easy to feel very isolated and to feel like there is nothing good happening in your life. But really, when you think about it in depth, like we just did now, even a simple cup of coffee or waking up in the morning is something that you can feel grateful for. So if ever you find yourself being bullied and you're in a position that is hurting you emotionally, try and think of at least 3 things for the day that you are grateful for. And I guarantee you, you can think of 3 things without batting an eyelid. So practice the skill of gratitude. Also, if you are someone that believes in faith and you are religious, turn to religion as well. Maybe you can take a few minutes and listen to a sermon, or you can say a prayer, or sometimes even going to the temple in itself calms your mind down immediately. So if you're somebody who's religious, sometimes these tips can help you as well. Another great skill to practice is meditation, and it doesn't need to be in the spiritual sense of meditating, but simply sitting down, closing your eyes, taking a few deep breaths, and being aware of the thoughts that are going around in your mind. So these are a few tips that can really help, I believe, build psychological immunity. Because at the end of the day, something that we're all looking for is to be at peace within. And there's this beautiful quote by George Harrison, which says, "It's all in the mind." Now, saying it's all in the mind is not meant to trivialize what you feel. What you feel is very valid, especially in the case of cyberbullying. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling angry, you're feeling depressed and anxious, they are very valid feelings. However, what this quote cases is the fact that you are in control of what you feel and you have that choice. And knowing that you have the choice to be resilient is a powerful position to be in. So there is always the choice to substitute these negative thoughts with something positive, and to also know that you are a lot stronger than you think, and that there is resilience to face this issue that you're going through. Finally, don't allow digital technology to control you. It is very easy in this day and age to allow digital technology to determine how we feel, how we act, just to fit into the social world and digital technology. But don't let that be the case. Be safe. Ensure that your passwords and profiles are all secure. And most importantly, if you notice somebody being bullied, or you are being bullied yourself, block the person and report them immediately. There are so many things. As much as the online world is dangerous, there are also ways that we can choose to keep ourselves safe. So utilize those tips and try as much as possible to keep yourselves safe. It is also good sometimes when it's a worst case scenario and you are really overwhelmed by the digital world to take some time off the digital platform. Now, taking time off from the digital platform doesn't mean we completely ignore it. When I found social media to be overwhelming, I completely stayed off Instagram and WhatsApp. But when I returned to it, I realized I returned to it with a little bit more anger. It hadn't really subsided. So a root cause analysis is something that really helps for this. So take your time off from the digital world and do a root cause analysis to understand the root cause of what you're feeling and why you're feeling that particular way. And this will help you address the problem directly and consequently help you feel better as well. Finally, if you do see cyberbullying happen and you are a bystander, it's, I think, hard for the bystander as well to see what is happening, and you might feel lost as to what you should do. But if you see it, one thing you need to keep in mind is that you need to be vigilant. Bullying can happen very subtly and without us even realizing it. So be vigilant and know that it's possible to be bullied online very quickly, and keep that in mind and keep a lookout for your friends and your siblings and the people that you care for. Secondly, be supportive, because it's easy to feel really isolated. So give the people that need the support emotionally, give them that emotional support and be there for them. Finally, challenge the bully. You can challenge the bully by taking legal action, or else you can challenge the bully by having an open, honest conversation and confronting them as well. So take the time to challenge the bully and show them they're not going to be able to walk all over you and take advantage of you that way. So these are a few tips that you can practice to build your psychological immunity, and that will hopefully help you build your resilience in the face of bullying. Because as much as it would be nice to think that we can live in a world where there is no cyberbullying taking place, the reality is that it is prevalent and it is taking place. And there are things that we can do to build our resilience as individuals. And I hope these tips do help you. And with that, I'll pass it over to Malin to wrap.
Thanks, Shakya. So that's sort of the end of our workshop. I have dropped a PDF onto the chat. I hope everyone can download it. I'll get Ashwini to also share it in your groups. So it's a quick summary of today's workshop, which I'll just take 1 minute to run through really quickly, just to remind everyone what we talked about, because it was a lot of information. We had to speed through it because we didn't have much time. So just to remind you all about what we talked about in today's workshop. First, cyberbullying can happen in really subtle ways, right? And really extreme ways as well. And sometimes also in the middle, where you're not even sure whether you are being cyberbullied. So in moments like that, it's really important that you think about how you feel. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling sad, that's a very good sign that you might be getting cyberbullied, right? In a very subtle way or a very serious way, right? So we talked about what to do in those cases. So you should immediately block these people. You should tell someone about it, find that trusted ally, and you can also reach out to these organizations. So we have listed out these organizations. We have given you links. So when you go to each of these links, you can also find their phone numbers, their websites, right? So we have a full list of links here. Remember to record your conversations and harassment so you have proof, right? So that it actually becomes even easier. And then worst case scenario, you can also complain to the police, right? We do have a women's and children desk at the police now. So it might not be as intimidating as it was before to report to the police, right? Then we also need to be aware whether we are being cyberbullies. Always be kind, treat other people the way we would like to be treated ourselves. Think about whether you would say something online, whether you would say the same thing physically if that person was standing in front of you, and always rethink about your post. Then Shakya also talked to you guys about building your psychological immunity and resilience, right? And so that you can face any problem. And as she mentioned, if it's a really serious case, always reach out and reach out to professionals. But then building this resilience is also helpful. And most of you, as medical students, you all already have this resilience built up in you. So remind yourselves of the things that you've gone through, the difficulties you've gone through, and overcome in the last few years, right? And remember that you have already this strength, right? And asking for help is not a weakness. And you can also practice certain things like meditation, journaling, gratitude, the small exercise that we did, and also even religious practices to help you build up that immune system. Finally, we talked about how you shouldn't let digital technology control you, and how to be aware about digital technology as a whole, to worry about your privacy online, to So keep your profile secure. Make sure you have two-factor authentication. If everyone knows what that is, basically when you put your password, sometimes you get also a code that you have to send from your phone. Right, that's called two-factor authentication. Make sure you try to do those kind of things. Make sure your profiles are secure. Think twice, thrice, even 4 times before you share images with other people. Right now, this is something that we didn't mention, but when it comes to, say, you're in a relationship and you want to share a picture of yourself, it could even be a nude picture, right? All of you are adults, you all are allowed to do that, right? No one is going to tell you not to do that, right? And it could be part of a healthy relationship, but be smart about it, right? Think twice or thrice before you do something like that. Also, if you do decide to do something like that, make sure you just be smart about it. Make sure you don't have your face in that picture, right? Or any other ways that someone could identify you, right? And just be smart about it, right? Yeah, Piyumi wants to add.
Because especially in cases like this, now you may, I just wanted to add this as well because it's very, very sensitive and I think it's something we should know. Now in cases like that, sometimes you may trust your partner and it might be all right, but things you don't think about are things like, let's say, phone theft. What happens if your phone goes to the hand of someone else and, all those, everything is in your phone. So just be mindful to make sure, you can't be identified. Just be very conscious of the way you share and what you share. Yeah.
And again, we don't want to tell you guys not to. Like you guys are adults, it's your choice, right? But just think twice, thrice before you do, and think carefully and understand how the internet works, right? Like when you post a picture or share a picture, it's permanent, right? Learn how to block and report people on platforms, and then if staying online is making you feel bad, there's always the opportunity of disconnecting for a while, right? It's not the end of the world, right? Although we all are connected so much to Instagram and Facebook and all these things, try disconnecting, right? You might actually have more time to do the things you love, like, your hobbies, play some music, play some sport, connect with people, go out. I know we've all been stuck for the last year or so because of COVID, but this might be an opportunity for us to start reconnecting with people, right? Because our brains have now been adapted to just being online and on our phones. So take this opportunity to do things physically, meet people, build up those relationships with your allies. Like if you feel like you can't talk to your parents or your friends about certain things, try to form those types of relationships. And sometimes being away from the internet might help you find things that make you happier, right? And make you more psychologically immune. And finally, just to sum everything up, just be kind and empathetic and understanding and brave online, right? And be as supportive as you can. So thank you for Ashwini and the Z Club for organizing this. We can spend another about 5 minutes if you all have any questions or comments, and then we can wrap this up. Thank you also for staying this extra time because we went a little off time. So do you all have any questions or comments or any even stories about things that you all have experienced or your friends have experienced that you would want to talk about? Or just questions about anything that we covered today? Okay, so seems like we were very thorough. Anyone has any stories to share or any experiences they've been to? Or their friends have been through?
I know I have personally seen a lot of Instagram accounts of my friends get hacked. And everybody has to come onto another account and ask everybody to block and report and things like that. So I think that happens a lot. So I think in general, the things about making sure you have 2 passwords and have the 2-factor authentication, things like that would really help. And ways to block and stuff. So should kind of look into that. And yeah, those things kind of do happen. So I think it's very relevant that you all brought it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashwini.
A very quick thing that this reminded me of, guys. So another thing to be mindful is, for instance, this is something that happened in the recent past. For instance, when you go to give your phone to fix, some of us just mindlessly kind of give your phone or laptop to fix. Make sure you are logged out of everything because your phone is going to be in the hands of so many people you don't know. Laptop is going to be in the hands of so many people you don't know. Ensure that you are logged out of all your Google accounts, Instagram accounts. Ensure that your phone doesn't have any photographs, right? So few things to think about.
Any other ideas or questions, guys?
Yeah, and also like on Instagram and things, I've seen like I think like 2 or 3 of my friends in 1 week posted that like their pictures had been taken from their account and then someone else has made an account. So like I don't know, but it took a lot of effort to kind of get that down. I think not only them, like quite a few people had to report it. So
Yes.
yeah, I think this thing was really helpful about the
Yeah, so to deal with stuff like that is obviously you have the option of reporting, but there's the option of not letting it happen to begin with. There are privacy settings in each of your accounts. So if you go to Facebook or Instagram, actually we have an entire workshop on privacy as well. If you guys are interested, at some point we can talk about on how to control your privacy online. So you go to your Instagram account and there are privacy settings where you can disable people from like just joining your Instagram without you knowing. So usually you can have it on request to actually join your Instagram to protect your pictures and everything, right? So read up a little bit about privacy settings. I think since we're spending so much time online, we need to be aware how much of our privacy can easily be leaked out. So start being interested in those issues. That's the only way we can combat this as our generation. Any other observations or feedback?
And I have to say that though this meeting was originally designed for women and children, this meeting's really relevant for boys and men also. I had to say that, yeah.
Thank you, Amiru. That's a really good point. So usually, like we do talk to both girls and boys, especially because not only are you the victims, you are also perpetrators. So on both cases, like girls can be really mean cyberbullies, guys can be really mean cyberbullies. They can also be cyberbullied, right? So it's not really split in gender, right? But we have to also admit that some of the most vile stuff are very, sometimes in most cases targeted at girls, unfortunately, right? But Amir is absolutely right. It is not a gender issue here. There are a lot of people who are affected. So thanks, guys. Since we're running out of time, just a quick thing I want to tell all of you. If you want to support us, so our team started with just 5 people. It was myself, I'm an engineer, Pumi, who's a drama theater artist. And then we had Chris. We have Chris. He's a doctor just like you guys. He's currently doing his internship in Jaffna, which is why he couldn't attend this. We also had a lawyer. Sorry?
Chris is here.
Hey, Chris. Chris is here. Great. So, and so we have doctors, we have lawyers, engineers, plus we have people working in the, social media advertising space. And now we have members such as Shakya, who are psychologists. So like having more and more members join us with different backgrounds and different expertise, and also people like you who will be going into the medical field would be great for us. So if anyone is interested in supporting what we do, and volunteering and helping us, you can contact us. You can reach out to Ashwini or one of us. You can also see our website. I'll just share our website. So if you go to thedwi.org, I'll send it in the group. You can visit this and contact us. We have also done a few projects. So I just want to show you guys 2 videos that were done by some of the children we worked with, right? So we wanted children to talk to their own age group about these issues. So these videos were produced during COVID time, and these children ages 13 to 18, they wrote the scripts, produced it, directed it, acted in it, and made these short videos that I hope if you care about this issue, you can also share amongst your friends, right? So I will share this link to our YouTube. You can find our YouTube on our website as well. So these videos are produced in English, Sinhala, and Tamil, right? So if you want to share these with your friends, please feel free to. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. Although we talked a lot about the dangers of these social media platforms, they can also really be good to share really positive and important information. So join us on these platforms and share these videos. So I'll just play one of these videos, 2 of these videos on privacy and cyberbullying. They're really short so that you can see what type of content we've been producing. So this was the video on cyberbullying. that is a video on cyberbullying, and we also have a quick video on privacy. And you can find all these videos here, plus the Sinhala and Tamil translations of these videos as well on our website and our YouTube. So just wanted to share this with you guys, and you can follow us on Instagram. So we had, I think, Abirtan came on board to help us with the Tamil translations here. He's here as well. So we have all these singular Tamil translations of these videos. We also have 2 videos on addiction as well as misinformation. So please help us and share the message. And if any of you are interested in joining our team, please reach out to us. And thanks again to Ashwini and the Z Club for organizing this.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
you.
I'm back over to Ashwini.
Thank you so much, Payumi, Malin, and Shakya. And we're honestly so glad, and it went out so well. And I think all of us learned a lot. But to officially thank you, I will hand it over to Nuha.
Hi, yes. It is a true honor for me to deliver the vote of thanks today on behalf of my colleagues. First and foremost, a huge thank you to the Digital Wellbeing Initiative and its speakers, Malin Jayasuriya, Pumi Vijay and Shakya Nathuitarana, for taking time off their busy schedules to be with us here today in the form of this amazingly engaging and interactive online workshop. I think I speak for us all here today when I say that I now feel more confident and knowledgeable in navigating the minefield that is social media today. We thank the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo, Vidya Jyoti Professor Vajradhi Sanayaka, for the encouragement of all the projects of the Golden Z Club. Our thanks to the academic advisor of the club, Dr. Dineshani Hettiarachchi, for being an unwavering pillar of support in all endeavors of the club. We thank Dr. Roshan Heva Patirana from the faculty's IT department for providing the platform for today's webinar. I'd now like to take the opportunity to thank the President and Committee of Zonta Club 1, as well as the area directors of the Zonta Club, and especially Zontian Ms. Enakshi Kotagama, for all the assistance provided our way. We thank Udari Vikramasinghe, the President of the Golden Z Club of the Faculty of Medicine, along with the entire committee and Golden Z members of the 2020 batch, especially Ashwini Chandrakumar, the chair of the project, for the numerous ways in which they contributed to today's project. And last but not least, thank you to all those present here today. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. We also just added the links to our Instagram page, YouTube, and Facebook to the chat. So please put a follow and share our content, and hopefully join us in helping, bring these issues to light. Thanks a lot. We really enjoyed this. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for staying back for so long. Appreciated.
Yes.
And now,
Thank you so much, Golden Z Club. Okay, bye.
Thank you.